Hi, I'm Darrel. I'm going to do another demo in the critique series and take advantage of one of the pictures that one of you have sent in. And I wanted to just show a few things that, again, will help you gain more dimension, and a couple things that might, anatomy-wise, that might help in the perspective and also, you know, the construction of your picture. Looks like it was a fun drawing to do. I think in a lot of ways it's very well done, but I think that if I show you what I'm going to demonstrate here, you might get a few more ideas. So I hope it'll benefit all of you out there. I'm going to make all my recommendations, my critiques based on the 5-pencil method. So I really want you, I know I keep saying this, but I want you to make sure you take advantage of those free demonstrations, tutorials on 5pencilmethod.com. There's a lot for you to learn there. It lays down the whole base and the principles for this technique, and then you'll better understand what I'm doing when I do a demonstration like this. One thing that I picked up is that this eye, in the way it's done, and I think it's just a matter of just missing that one little thing. Might be the photograph's a little dark, maybe not understanding anatomy well enough, but one of the things I talk about with eyes is that if I want to do a portrait where I want it to have full eye contact with the viewer, the irises will be round. The further away that I look, and I'm turning and looking off into a distance or at a right angle here, they're going to become more elliptical, depending on how far I've turned my head. Well, this is about 3/4 view. And so the thing that I noticed about this was this eye was actually bigger than this one, and it wasn't as elliptical as I think it could be. I think this one is pretty well constructed, but I'd like to be able to show the eyelid going around that eye, and you can see it if you look closely. You can see the eyelashes and the edge of the eyelid, the bottom one, going around to where we can't really see the corner of the eye. It's hidden from our view ever so slightly. So I'm going to take a little bit of this off. Let me see if I can remove enough of it that we can do this. Not going to be able to get it all off of there, but enough I think I can make my point here. We'll redirect this pupil so that it's back here, and maybe put this one a little more established here. And now let's make the edge of the eyeball here. It's, if you know what I mean by elliptical, instead of round, it's more like this. Oop, that was horrible. It's an oval. And that's what happens here, is we are looking more at a little bit of a side view. We won't see that full on and round. And then this becomes the edge of the eye, but the lower lid and the eyelashes are going around that, and you actually see that top facet of the lower lid. There's a flat facet before it touches the eyeball, and then on the far edge of that flat, facet on that eyelid, the eyelashes come out of that. They don't come directly out of the eye, and that's not the case here. I think this is correct here, but still we want to be able to have this go around and that way, and then these come around, and we see them actually coming around from the back side of the eyeball. So I think this just changes the equation a little bit. I think it was an important little reconstruction here. And then one of the things that I think is very prominent and maybe could be addressed a little differently here is that when you look at something, notice the arc, notice the way that it's curved. Almost everything is going to have a curve, and sometimes it's very difficult to tell until you get something. I'm going to grab something here, until you have something to compare it to, you sometimes don't even notice the curve. And as I put this, from this point to this point, I can see how much it arcs out of that. If I go up to this photo source, though, I see that not only is it not curved that way, it's not even flat. It actually almost goes down and up. So I want to reverse this just a little bit. And the reason that I would pay attention to something like this is because this might be very, very characteristic of this person. And I might miss one of those little individual things that could help you really nail her character and personality. You may not think it'd be something so small sometimes, but sometimes that and a couple other things can make all the difference in the world. So that is what I would do there. And then there are places that, like on the mouth, this came out as darker. It might very well be the file that I have, maybe the scan wasn't as good a quality. There's a lot of different things that could happen, I realize, and I don't know how dark this drawing was to begin with, but it probably would not be darker right in the center, and in my experience, I like to make the corners of the mouth a little darker. So I think you can probably see how that changed as we have the corners are back further than the front part of the mouth. They're just pushed in. And so often that's going to be a little darker place. Now beyond that, I know there's not much room in this, but beyond that, I like to show it as shading down, because the top lid or that part of the face is often casting a little shadow on the next thing down, that other part of the mouth or lip. And then over here, we have the same thing going on as we do with the eye. Actually, this is probably, as we look at the lip like this is probably round and going up that way. The thing that makes this look like it's coming out further is just maybe the counterpart of this. This is a contour over here, and then we have this coming out as well. But this right here, I want to be the lip. This is my opportunity to show depth and perspective, because as it goes around to that darker side of the face, the lip is going to get a little darker, and we're going to be looking at it in a very similar way to the eye here, where we saw the edge of the eye back a little further, and this part of the mouth is shorter than this part of the mouth, because we get to see this whole part as it comes up and over and then on this side. But this is very, very short because of the way the head is turned. So then we have this happening down here as well. Now beyond that, there are a number of things that I think it would be good to take advantage of. And I just want to show you this because it's a good example for all of you to watch out. As good a drawing as this is, I know it was probably fun to do, and I'm happy to see it. You could make this pop off the page and have a more dimension, because as I go to where there's less light, I not only want it to get a little darker and have reserved myself enough value to do that, but I want to make sure that this is a clean edge, and that it's a little darker because it's getting less light there. There'll be once in a while you'll have maybe some reflective light in a place like that. But when I have a chance to conclude my value and it comes to a stop, I can't see it anymore, that makes sure that I know that this arm is in front, that I can't see this anymore just because the arm is blocking it. Now, if something is in front of something else, in some way it's going to have a clean edge. Even if it's a textured surface, somehow that is going to have to separate from the background. It can't blend one thing into another. And yet, on the other hand, I don't want to leave just a line trying to demonstrate everything either, because a line says nothing until you dedicate it. And in this case, I have a line separating the arm from the clothing. And I don't leave it as just a line, but I interpret it by showing which side is shaded. And not just that it's darker and it's shaded that way, but that it gets lighter and lighter as it comes back. I don't care how dark it is. It's still going to have a darker place. If you don't pay attention, you're going to have all your dark areas become flat because that's the way it looks in your photograph. And you don't want to be dependent on that because you can do so much more with it. So let's go ahead and just look at a few of these little things. I'm not going to address everything, but some of these key points. You see that this neck gets lighter. It's almost as bright as anything on the picture. And yet we can demonstrate that this is going back to where there's less light as well, by making sure the neck is going around logically to where there's less light. I am casting a shadow. Now, when I do something like this, and I don't want it to become the hair, because that can get very confusing. I know she's got dark hair there, or at least it's in the shadow. I want to make sure that I've refined this shadow enough that it doesn't get confused with the hair. I don't want this to be a bunch of lines that are very evident making this up, or you would think it is the hair. So you have an opportunity with texture here to not only separate things with value and a clean edge, but separate things because of the difference in texture. So now, as we come over here, we could make all kinds of choices just because we know we can do it. We could come over here and we could actually put a line here and make the shadow go this way. Now I realize it's only part of it, and we could go all the way around, or come up and have it get less and less and less as it comes up into this highlight edge. But this helps me also to be able to put a little more value in places like this, a little more value, so that I can make a highlight like this effective. If I have this dark enough, just dark enough, I'm going to have a lot more drama and depth and contour to my picture, because now I have a chance to not have a line out here representing the edge of a highlight, but I can have my tone in there, a very light tone, but I can show the contrast and show it get lighter and lighter and lighter until that value ends. And I can have an edge to value just like I would anywhere else. So over here, there's several different situations. Instead of just having a line like the photograph suggests, we could come out here and go wider. I don't want to get too dark, so you want to be careful. This is already very dark, and I'm using that as a base. You never want a line to be too dark. You don't want that line to dictate to you how much value you're going to have to put up next to it to make the line go away. You want to absorb it into your value and have it become an edge to that value. So if I'm starting out with too dark of a line, then that means I'm going to have to make too dark of a shadow, and it would be kind of unnatural. And the flash is what has caused this to be very harsh. And we can't do much else. We wouldn't be able to take pictures in a lot of places if we didn't have flash. But on the other hand, I want to teach you how to interpret it so that it doesn't throw in contradictions and things that just aren't right, or cause you to misinterpret what's really going on. These are opportunities for you to take some liberties and actually come up with a much better product or drawing. So we could do the same thing over here. We could have a clean edge and we could go this way. And we could go up here and we could have maybe a dark edge there, but then we can go ahead and have some separation in value with a clean edge. Even though the two values might be very similar, we can still show a separation by having a clean edge to our value, whichever one it is, and cast a shadow out here. This is all going into where it's a little darker. And now we have dark hair that we can put in front here. It helps us in constructing the hair, the ear, because it's giving us a lot of freedom. We don't have to be stuck on knowing anatomy of the ear. We can just go ahead and show that the hair is covering it. But then we have to make sure that we show that we can't see this anymore because of the hair. So it's nice to be able to have this and show a shadow underneath that little part. It's nice to have this detail go all the way up to behind the ear, because where would it be darker? It would be going to where there's less light, and it would be darker behind that ear. So we don't want to have dark and then it suddenly gets light as it goes to where logically there'd be less light. It'll be getting darker. Now, I don't want to lose my texture either, so basically what I do is I may have to do this once in a while and create a buffer zone, but then it gives me a chance to pull back out because we want to show our detail all the way in to the darker recesses if we can. So now I have that opportunity where I don't have to match it up to that edge of the ear, and I have something to pull it out from. It's a lot more forgiving than just, again, having a line and expecting to be able to meet that every time you take a stroke. Well, you're probably not going to be able to do it. You're going to have places where it doesn't quite get to the line. You're going to have places where it goes over the line, and those kinds of things. I think that this right here will really help. And interpreting a few things that you might see here that actually are edges and recesses so that we can make this logically a little deeper than the rest of her ear. That we can take this out in front because she has darker hair. I can take a stroke, which doesn't always happen, but I can take a stroke and have that dark pencil stroke actually represent hair in this case. So we could do the same thing with the hands. We could do the same thing with many parts where we can just create a little more three-dimensional quality here and have her start coming out off the page. And I'm trying to eliminate a line. Remember, a contour is a place where you can see in and out. And this isn't really the paper or the pencil to really be doing a whole lot with this. I'm more trying to give you principles. So let's go ahead and shade down the white of her eye. Something we didn't see because, again, it's probably taken with flash. But it'll just add a nice, natural, warm quality about it. We can do exactly the same thing with this nostril. This normally would not be bright. It's because of the flash. And this is something that we can easily take care of here, where we have that line for the edge of the nose. We can come out this way and show that the nose is actually casting a shadow. Let's just take just a moment and look at what we started with. Even though we've done very few little alterations, it might be good for us to just see where we started and where we ended. You can probably see in here the amount of value that I have next to the line compared to this. And again, these are just the starts of what could be done. But the construction of the eye, maybe it's a little dark for you to be able to see, but if you can see this here, you'll start seeing that it gives a much better perspective. We want to see how everything turns and goes around behind. We're working with a round head, and just like I've said with hair or anything, we need to wrap these things around and show perspective. You'll see that this started getting darker as it went around behind. Just a suggestion again, just a starting example. The hair that's getting darker as it goes further back towards the ear. So I'm not left with just a line for the edge of the ear. And some of these things, again, are just going to be opportunities for you to, as you practice and learn how to apply them even better, they are well worth it. And I think it might be a lot of fun for you to see what can happen with your own drawings. So see you in the next demo.